Good morning, everyone. This is Sam Allred. I bring you greetings from my home office in Heber City, Utah. It's just a beautiful winter day today. Thank you so much for joining me. This is an introductory webinar for our Emerging Leaders Academy program. And I've got a series of slides I'll go through in the slide deck, and I'll try to do it fairly quickly, but hopefully thoroughly. And then I'll just leave it open at the end. If you've got any questions, just chat them in the GoToWebinar. I've got my chat screen up, and I'll reply to any chats that you have, or questions or comments or whatever. I love the program and try not to get too carried away in it. I'm going to try to keep it to roughly 30 minutes or so. Maybe it might be a bit less, and I'll just go through this and explain what the program is and how it works and why we feel like it's effective. First of all, let me just start with a slide that just talks about one of our main concerns. We've got more changes in leadership seats in firms than we've ever seen in the history of the profession. No surprise there. With the retirements of baby boomer partners, we retire more partners than at any other time in the entire history of our profession, which means that we logically appoint, elect new partners more so than at any other time in our profession's history. And our concern is just that firms aren't taking that serious enough. Let me just explain what I mean by that. It's not just that they don't look at it. It's not that they don't run the numbers. It's not that they don't know which partners are retiring. But when I look at my 20-year history as a full-time consultant to the profession, it's really easy for me to say, if I take all of the topics that leaders want to discuss, whether we're in managing partner roundtable groups, conferences, workshops, retreats, one-on-one with phone calls. Again, this is 2 decades of working with 500 firms in North America, which we do in Upstream Academy. All of the topics they want to talk about, if I put them into buckets, the one bucket, which is challenges and issues with existing partners, is the single biggest bucket, and it's a bigger bucket than all of the other topics combined. That being the case, what I'm trying to point out in the second paragraph is it's not just, hey, have we looked and said, oh yeah, we've got to appoint new partners, do we know who they are? My question is really, are you taking the intentional development of those partners serious enough that you are on a pattern of developing the best partners in the firm's history going forward? Or is your intent to get somebody good enough to be voted in as a partner? Those are miles apart. It's that first one that is my concern, that firms aren't taking that serious enough. When I look at leadership programs, and I have for gosh, 15 years, there's some weaknesses of most leadership programs, whether they're in or out of our profession. Let me share the top 5. They ask too little of the people, so you see very little change in them. That's really why we got pulled into, that's not a bad definition, pulled into Emerging Leaders Academy and doing it because I had so many managing partners that were clients and saying, hey, we're not opposed to putting them in programs. What we're opposed to is a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, they come out the exact same person. There's been no change. That's not what we want to see. And I think whenever we ask too little of participants, we are going to see exactly that. If it feels more like a boondoggle than a work program, you're not going to see much of a change in the participants. Too many of the programs create a disconnect from the firm. Everything that happens in the program happens away from the firm, away from leaders in the firm, and the leaders aren't connected to it. And I think there's a real risk in that on so many different fronts. The learning experiences happen in big doses several times a year. When you load it all up and deliver it to somebody once or twice a year, there's only so much we can retain, and there's only so much we can work on. So we miss out on the benefits of somebody learning on a regular basis and growing on a regular basis when the intent is we're going to give it to you a couple times a year and expect and hope most of your growth happens then. Number 4 is way more complex than it sounds, but the focus seems to be more on doing things than on becoming a leader. And that is a significant difference, and I'm going to talk a little bit about, when I talk about the principles, what I mean more about that. And then the fifth concern of programs is that they're too expensive. You know, when we've got a boatload of people to develop, because we've got a boatload of partners we're retiring, and we hope that growth factors in, internal growth, organic growth, and those things. And so we need to create leaders. If it's excessive, if it's costing us 10 grand a year per person that's in a program, we are instinctively going to limit how many people we're developing, and that becomes a risk to the firm and to the firm's future. We do believe firms should be doing most of their own leadership training. That way they're connected, it's real, they know what people need, they recognize them as different individuals, each having unique strengths and unique weaknesses, and they're able to play to those and fit them for the, you know, one size fits one for whatever their career track ought to be. The challenge is that firm leaders, especially the very best ones, especially the ones that are most capable of doing this, are super busy. So our intent with ELA program, the Emerging Leaders Academy program, is to partner with you and give you a role that you ought to play, because I don't think any firm ought to abdicate their responsibility to develop their people and simply say, we'll write a check, you go develop them. I think that is incredibly wrong and incredibly risky for the firm and for the individual being developed. So we see this as a partnering. We started it in 2007, so it's been around over a decade. It is right now has 600 people in the program. It's a 3-year program, and it's got 600 people involved in the program on their way to leadership seats in the firm. And by so many different measures, the program's been very successful. I'll tell you the 2 measures that mean the most to us. It's not necessarily what we think. It's nice to feel good about what you do, but our measurements are really 2 primary things. One, what the individuals tell us that are in the program or have graduated from the program. We track how many leaders in our profession came through ELA. We track how many managing partners in our profession came through ELA. It's a significant number. And what they tell us again and again is it made all the difference in the world in their career in so many different ways. That's impactful to us, and one measurement we use in terms of success. The other is what managing partners and leading partners tell us. And the biggest compliment we can ever receive, and we hear it regularly, is we see such a change. We see such a difference in this individual since they've been in this program. That's what we're shooting for. Let me share, first of all, the principles of leadership development that I think drive that change. There's 10 of them that the program was designed around, and we continue to adhere to every one of those. And then I'll give you a very quick overview of what the program really feels like, how it works, and then provide you with some key dates. And then again, at any time, chat in any questions that you have, and I'll be happy to take those. Here's the foundational principles. Learning must be continuous. Learning has to happen throughout the program, not at a couple key times a year, and it needs to be delivered in digestible doses throughout the year, and there has to be a really strong emphasis on what it takes to become a better leader. In other words, somebody can read a book and it may do nothing for them. Somebody can sit through a conference. It may literally do nothing for them. So listening and reading, although they can be catalytic, unless somebody regularly chooses to do something different based on what they've read or heard, it won't make them a better leader. It's by what you're doing different that will in fact give you the opportunity to become a different leader. That ought to happen on a regular basis. That's one of the designs behind the program, and why I think there's a noticeable rapid change in an individual that's in the program is because of how it's designed, not just by happen chance. Much of the training needs to be done by current firm leaders. Again, we see ELA as a partnership with each firm. There's well over 100. In fact, that slide listed 120. I believe it's more than that, but there's a lot of firms that participate. We see ourselves as partners with them, and there's a role they play. I'll tee that up a little bit later, but that is a significant thing. So because of that, each participant in the program, this isn't optional, they have to have a guide. And the guide is generally a partner in the firm that put the individual in the program. If I look at the hundreds and hundreds of guides we have, not all of them are partners. All of them are influential. Most of them are partners in the firm. And then if the firm is going to put in more than a few individuals and have more than a couple guides, then they really ought to assign somebody that becomes the ELA advocate so that they really know at any time what's going on in the program, what comes up next, to make sure it's on everybody's calendar and they're not missing any opportunities or things. The next principle, and that ties a little bit back to that first one, not only should the learning be continuous and delivered in digestible doses, but the participant needs to apply what they learn on a daily basis and recognize the strong connection between what they're doing today and what that's helping them to become as a leader. This idea that give them another year, they'll be a better leader is a joke. The passage of time is the slowest developer of people there is. And we give them another year, they're not necessarily a better leader. They're a year older with a year less runway on their career. And so this is vital that they understand how important each day is, each week, each month is in the development of them as a leader. And the fastest development will come on what they proactively, intentionally choose to do. The program does a great job teaching them that and helping them understand what they ought to do on a regular basis to make the most of their career and to become the very best leader that they can. We call it becoming a high yield, low maintenance leader. Become a great partner. Everybody likes to be around and is thrilled to have as a partner and a leader in the firm. That's what we're teaching within this, how to become a high-performing partner. The program should be appropriately demanding of the participants and should stretch them. Again, if it feels like a boondoggle and it feels nothing but fun, I'm not saying the ELA program isn't enjoyable, but if it's just nothing but a boondoggle, you won't see any change in the individual. So it needs to feel like more of a work program. I'll guarantee you it does that. I'll show you what it's made up in just a minute. And then the last 4 bullets, the learning experience must be easily customizable to meet the individual and firm's need. Everybody in the program is different. I sit in conferences with them. Just recently in the last few weeks, we had 2 back-to-back conferences, and those 2 conferences had probably 160 people combined, 140 some people combined, and somewhere in that range. And they're all different. Every one of them. They have different strengths. They have different weaknesses. They're on a different path. They're doing something different within their firm. There's some similarities, certainly, but it's so vital that a leadership program can be made to feel like a one-size-fits-one, not a one-size-fits-all. And I'll show how that works. The progress of each individual must be measurable. That's vitally important. I'll show how that works in the program. And then the program, last 2 bullets, the program has to be affordable and require minimal travel. Hey, the more travel you require, the less affordable it is. You can think that through yourself. And then participants need to be able to network. There needs to be opportunities. It needs to be built into the program how they network with each other, because one of the huge benefits, if you can think about it, is, man, if you're picked for the program and you're one of the rising stars in your firm, guess what? You get to be in a program with 600 rising stars in their firm, about the same point in their career, roughly, and you get a chance to interact with them and develop a network with them. Think about how beneficial and how helpful that can be. I'll show exactly what we do to encourage that and facilitate that. So let me give you an overview of the program. And I'm going to try to explain this in some depth, but move through it. And then if you've got questions, ask away. Each participant needs to have a guide. I mentioned that. And each firm can benefit from having somebody that's an advocate. The guide should be somebody that's respected, a leader in the firm. A partner or a guide may guide more than one participant. There's a few that guide up to 3. That's a pretty high number. There's a number of them, quite a few that might guide 2. I think that's doable. Many of them guide 1. I get that. but I don't see that a guide's going to guide 5 or 6 people and do it effectively, and I'll explain the role of a guide as we go. The guide works with the participant throughout the program, throughout the 3-year program. They help the participants set and accomplish goals and set and accomplish a project each year. So they're meeting with them every single month and holding them accountable for those things that they've set out to do. And I'll be showing those things in just a few slides. Upstream Academy provides guidance and support for both the ELA guides and the advocates. So I do the guide training. I've done that since day 1, 2007. Guide training is an hour every trimester. So every 4 months, and it's on a schedule, it's on a calendar, every 4 months I give guide training. I have 9 different guide training sessions that I do. It's been regularly referred to as the best coaching training in our profession. I think it's very, very good. I get that feedback regularly from the guides. These are webinars that I do. They are recorded, so if somebody has a conflict with their schedule, they're able to get it and listen to it versus listen to it live. It's on the recorded thing. It's on a web-based OPT system, online progress tracking system. I'll show you in a minute. And there's 9 different ones. And so a guide that's a guide for 3 years is going to hear each of those 9, and that is specific to teach them how they can make the biggest difference in somebody's career that they're guiding. Very specific. And it's excellent training. We also provide training and resources for the advocates, and that would be somebody in the firm, typically in an administrative role that's assigned as an ELA advocate, so they really understand what the program is and when things are coming up and so on. So one of the questions is, who are the guides typically? And I appreciate that question that just came in. They're typically partners in a firm that really care about the development of people. Let me tell you the 4 criteria that really make a good guide. So it's not, so you understand, it's not some exhaustive list and somebody has to be born with the gift of being a guide. But these 4 things are really vital. If somebody's lacking one of these 4 things, it's quite likely they're not going to be that effective of a guide. Typically, again, they are partners in the firm. I've seen some that are COOs. I've seen some that are firm administrators. I've seen some that are in different roles that aren't a partner in the firm and still be a guide. That's the minority of our 600 guides, so to speak. We don't quite have that many guides because some guide more than one participant, but our 500 plus guides, typically they are a partner. Here's the 4 criteria. 1, they have to really care about the development of people. In a sense, be passionate about that. It has to be something that drives them. Number 2, they have to be willing to invest their time. There's no way somebody could be a good guide and not be willing to invest their time. In a minute, as I go through it, you'll get a feel. They ought to be meeting with the participant up front for an hour or 2 to help them pick the right goals to begin with. They ought to be meeting with them every single month to ascertain their progress and hold them accountable and so on. And they've got to be available as needed to be dialed in. They've got to listen to the guide trainings once a trimester, but they've got to be willing to invest their time, and that's the 2nd criteria. Number 3, they have to be willing to be open and honest with the participant they guide. If they always want to make it sound good, they always want to sugarcoat it, they're not willing to be open and honest with them, they're not going to be a very good guide. By the way, these same 4 criteria is what makes a really good coach in a firm. And then the 4th one, they have to be willing to move them out of their comfort zone. If it's this idea that I never want to see them sweat, I never want to see them be uncomfortable, they will make a lousy guide. There is no growth in a comfort zone, no development when somebody stays in their comfort zone. The program is designed to give the participants regular experiences outside of their comfort zone, because that's where all growth is and all development is, and a guide has to be willing to move somebody out of their comfort zone. Those 4 things. That's it. There's not like an exhaustive list. So that's who makes a good guide, is those individuals that hit that criterion or a respected leader within their firm. And their primary role, as it says on the slide, is to hold the participant accountable for the things that they've agreed to do. The goals and the project and other assignments. And the advocate's primary role is to administrate the program. Know that it's on everybody's calendar that's involved in it. Know when the next leadership training forum, when the conferences they're attending, where they are on reporting on their goals and their project and those kinds of things. The second factor I'd like to mention is leadership development goals. Leadership skills are best learned by doing something, not by reading or hearing about things. So each year, participants will set and accomplish goals in 5 areas of development: business development, client management, personal effectiveness, how I use my personal time, largely my non-billable time, team development, developing others around me, and leadership development, becoming a better and better leader, a more impactful and effective leader. They will set goals in each one of these things because our belief is if you want to become a high-performing partner, you need to be well-rounded. The worst partners in our profession are rock stars in 1 or 2 areas, and they stink in all the other ones. They are so high maintenance and so challenging. We don't want anybody coming through the program becoming that. So we're teaching them be well developed. Be good in these areas. And so that for 3 years, they're setting and accomplishing goals in each of these areas. Here's how that works. We start out each year. For year 1, we provide them with a list of goals in each of these areas. Some of the goals are mandatory. A bunch are optional. We give them an idea of how many goals we would like them to have in each of these areas. And the guides work very closely with them up front to help make sure they select the proper goals. We do a guide training right away to help the participants understand how they should be looking at goals and viewing goals. It's not look over the sheet and pick the easiest thing. That will do nothing for you. And we do a guide training with the guides to teach them how to help the participant pick goals that will really stretch and help develop them. We have a system called the Online Progress Tracking System. I'll describe that in more depth later, but I want to show a slide from that. Here is a slide from that on how they pick client management goals. And if you'll look, the very first goal, the one that says read Chapter 18, finding out what clients want in David Maester's book, True Professionalism, that is already selected. That means that's a mandatory goal. Then it says that they ought to be picking 2 or more additional goals. And they can pick any of those listed, but please note they can add their own goals. All of those are completely customizable, and we teach them that in the first leadership training forum they listen to, and we teach the guides that in the first guide training they sit through. We encourage them to customize these to fit the individual. If I'm guiding an individual, they've just been appointed as, I don't know what, the transfer pricing expert in the firm, then their goals ought to reflect that and tie into that. What client management goals should they have that reflect that they are the transfer pricing expert? What business development goals? What team development goals? So the goals ought to tie to the individual, but we're giving some examples of good goals in each area. The third component is leadership training forums. During each year of the program, we do 1-hour leadership training forums. There's 3 of us that participate in the teaching of those, and I'll introduce this all a little bit later, but myself, Tim Bartz, and Jeremy Clopton. And there are a total of 10 leadership training forums for year 1 and 2. There are 8 leadership training forums for year 3. We do them every month except March and April in their first year. We just found that it's kind of a ghost town in our profession that time of year, so we don't do them then, but we do them every other month other than that. We send out materials in advance. They participate in them. We do record the leadership training forums so that they have access to them. They are required to listen to all of them. It's a requirement. If they catch it live, they get a 1-hour CPE credit. If they're conflicted out of the live sharing of that leadership training forum, then they listen to it on the online progress tracking system where it's recorded and they can view it and listen to it, take their notes and things there. Here's kind of what we cover. In year one, we take 2 areas of leadership development that we talked about, and one is personal effectiveness and one is client management. So all of the 10 leadership training forums tie to either personal effectiveness or client management. These are the areas of discipline. The next year, year 2, ties to team development and business development. Each of the leadership training forums fall into one of those 2 things. And then in year 3, the areas of discipline are the last 2, leadership and financial management. So they kind of tie to the same areas that they're picking goals, but these are the things that we cover in leadership training forums. The feedback we get is very, very good. We try to teach them at what we call a 303 level. They are not basic. We spend the first probably 40 minutes with the PowerPoint slides that we put together teaching the concepts. And then in the last 20, maybe 25 minutes, there are always 3 questions that are really thought-provoking questions, and we line up in advance 3 participants from that particular class, year 1, 2, or 3 that year, to respond to each question. So there's typically, or 2 individuals, excuse me, to respond to each question. So there's typically 6 participants that respond. We free up their phone lines. They actually give their responses. Their pictures are on the, and names are on the slides. And it's really enjoyable to listen to their thought process, how planned they are, how intelligent their thoughts and feedbacks are on that question. I think it's one of the favorite parts I get listening to it. Guides are permitted to join us for any leadership training forum. I can see on my screen many times how many guides are there, and I get feedback from them all the time, how much they enjoy it, how good they think the training is, how much they learn from it, and wish they had it when they were younger in their career. Guides are always welcome to join us in those leadership training forums. We enjoy having them participate in that. The 4th component is the project, or for those of you up north, the project. That is something they pick each year. We want them to take on a challenging leadership project every single year for the 3 years. It is meant to stretch them. It's meant to be a stepping stone. It's meant to really get them out of their comfort zone. And so a good project meets the following criteria. It does stretch them. It's very specific. It benefits the firm. It's measurable. It has a time frame. We expect that they would spend a minimum of 10 hours showing leadership on the project. The project needs to be done by the end of the fiscal year. So ELA starts in June each year and ends the following May. This year it will start in June of 2019 and end in May 2020. They have until then to finish their project. We know it's going to stretch them if it meets these criteria. If they haven't ever done it before, it's not easy to do. It's going to take their absolute best effort, and it's going to move them out of their comfort zone. We want a project that does that. We are incredibly comfortable if they want to team up with other participants on a project. We see that all the time. Typically, those participants are from the same firm, but not always. And it's totally enjoyable to us and a great learning experience if they team up. There might be 3 or 4 or 5 that get together on a significant project and take it on. Each needs to show their 10 hours of leadership. And it can be a great learning experience and a great networking opportunity for them. On the OPT system that I'm going to talk about in just a second, you can download examples of projects. Please realize the program has been around since 2007. We put thousands of people through it, and so it's easily something that There's been lots of projects, and we have lots of examples there for you to get ideas from if you're trying to think of a really good project. Again, we'd like a project that fits the individual and benefits the firm, and it stretches them, and it's significant. I'm always amazed at the projects I review each year. They are really, really good projects. I've mentioned a number of times our online progress tracking system. That's how we measure the progress. That's something that we can look at and track their progress on their goals and on their project. They can network with other program participants and stay connected. Guides access it. That's where we put all training so that they can listen to it and review it and listen to it again if they would like. It's all on the ops system. We give each participant, guide, and ELA advocate a unique login ID once they're registered in the program. And there's also a lot of other guidance and things that are available on that ops system. Everything goes on the ops system, and it makes it easy. And we can view it, and we can view their progress. We can view when they've accomplished a goal. We can view when they've made progress on their project that they have. We can view it when they've listened to a leadership training forum and met with their guide to share what they learned about it, what they're going to do as a result of it, which is something we hope happens every month, that the guide asks them, tell me what you learned and tell me what you're going to do about it. That reinforces that growing as a leader comes from doing things on a regular basis. So everything that we do in the ELA program is available on the ops system. The sixth component is networking at a major Upstream Academy event. I mentioned to you that one of our criteria for a leadership program is that you do have minimal travel. There is no additional cost. Whatever they pay to get in the program gets them entry into any of the conference they pick. They will pay, additionally to what they pay to register for the program, they'll pay their own travel and hotel. We provide most of the meals while they're there. So let me kind of go through and walk through what we expect. Here's our conferences for this next fiscal year. We have our big Headwaters Leadership Conference that we do for the whole profession, and our big Best Practices Conference we do for the whole profession. Those draw about 150 people or so. The first one is always in July. This year it will be July 11th and 12th. It will be in Denver, Colorado. Best Practices is always late October, downtown Chicago. It will be again this year. You see it there is the 24th and 25th. We move the ELA conferences around each year. We just finished ones a couple weeks ago, or what we call our winter conference. It was in Las Vegas. Our fall conference, we have been in Boston. We have been in Seattle 2 years ago. We'll be back in Seattle again this year. That's usually feedback from the participants where they'd like to see a conference. So let me just explain how that works. When somebody is in year one of ELA, we want them to come to one of our ELA conferences. They would either come on September 26th and 27th, or they would come on January 7th and 8th. So we want them to attend an Emerging Leaders Conference in year one. We want them to attend an Emerging Leaders Conference in year two. And in year three, they pick either Headwaters or Best Practices. It doesn't matter to us. Whatever works best for them, and the location and the timing and whatever. But in year one, our preference is come to either the one in September in Seattle or the one in January in Austin. If both of those dates are conflicted out, then they can in year one come to either Headwaters or Best Practices. But the vast majority of their peers will be in either Seattle or Austin this fiscal year. They will get a chance to interact with them. They will learn who they are. I think they'll find it extremely beneficial. And I think that will be a good experience. I know it will be. We hear year after year from the participants that that's the best conference they've ever attended in their entire career. We expect it to be. It's very interactive. We put them into table seatings. We mix it up, 3 or 4 table seatings throughout the day-and-a-half conference. It starts at 8 the first day, goes till 6 o'clock with a reception. The second day goes till noon, so they're able to fly home the second day. We put them to work on lots of relevant things that they love, and they solve challenges and issues and brainstorm things and share their results, and we do a lot of teaching through that, and that allows them to get the chance to really network with their peers and get to know them very well. The last component is who teaches that. I mentioned earlier, it's myself, Jeremy Clopton, and Tim, and that's Tim Bartz, and that's who teaches the program. We each get to play to our strengths. We love to be able to do that. We think it's a great privilege and an opportunity, and that's something that we absolutely love. Jeremy is the newest partner at Upstream Academy, and actually is an ELA graduate here a number of years ago, and just a bright, young, talented leader in our profession. There is an unconditional guarantee. We do that with everything we do within Upstream. Everything is guaranteed, and it says exactly this: if you're not completely satisfied, we will at your option either waive your fee or accept that portion of the fee that reflects your level of satisfaction. We've had that since we started ELA 20 years ago. We believe in that. We believe that we need to deliver on anything that we say we're going to do, and that those who participate need to be completely satisfied with it. And that drives us to do the best that we can, and we feel good about that. There is CPE. It's based on whatever the participation is. They get an hour for each leadership training forum. There's 10 of those each year. The conference, they typically get about 14 hours or so for that conference, maybe a little bit more. I don't really track that, but they get that for the conference, and they get that for the leadership training forums that they listen to live, not just the recorded ones. Finally, the investment in that. There is a bit of an early bird special. We've got to have people registered by May 15th. So if you register them before May 15th, then it's $3,400 per year. If you're a member of Upstream Academy Network, then it's $2,900 per year. After May 15th, the price is $3,650 per person, or $3,150 if somebody's a UAN member. Again, that fee represents the complete cost of being in the program, except for travel, lodging, and any meals outside of the conference. We provide breakfast and lunch for the first day, a reception with heavy hors d'oeuvres. The first evening, we provide breakfast, a full breakfast, again, the next morning. So we do provide a fair amount of the meals while they're there. Those meals outside of that would be additional cost. That lets you know what the investment would be per person in the program. There is no cost for guides to be in the program. Again, if they want to come, they don't come to ELA conferences. It's just participants that come. But if a guide wants to come to either the best practices or headwaters, I know there's a significant discount. There is a cost. I can't remember what it is. Kelsey will chat it in here in just a minute. And the guides can participate in any of the leadership training forums, and there is no cost for that. Thank you, Kelsey. $600. So that's about half off of coming to either best practices or headwaters. So if they want to come with the participant, and many of them do, they get almost a half off discount, because it's about $1,200, close to that, $1,100 for somebody to come to headwaters or best practices. Then one last thing, let me just share again key dates, and then see if you've got any questions, and I'll wrap it up. The leadership training forums, for those registering in this year, which means they'll be year one, are always going to be at 9 a.m. Mountain, 10 a.m. Central, 11 Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. For their whole 3-year program, that will be their time slot. There are the specific dates when the leadership training forums will be held in that first fiscal year. The intro webinar for brand new guides will be on July 8th at 9 a.m. And I don't count the intro webinar as one of the 9 training guide trainings. That's just an intro to explain the program, a little more in depth than what I've shared right here. The guide webinars for the first fiscal year, remember I do them each trimester, there they are, July 23rd, October 28th, and January 14th. Those are the guide webinars. So, and then I've already shared with you the dates of the conferences that are coming up. Again, each participant would pick one of those. If they're in year one, we would hope they pick either the fall conference in Seattle or the winter conference in Austin, Texas. I don't see any other questions that came in. Here are the email addresses. There's mine in the middle, sama@upstreamacademy.com. If you've got any questions, please send me an email and I'll give you a very detailed reply. I hope that was helpful to you. Best wishes. We'll see you later. Have a great day. Bye-bye.